Let's talk a little Florida State recruiting. Let's break down the impact of FSU's win over Alabama. Noles coming off that 2-10 2024 season. They dominated number 8 Alabama 31-17. They were a 2-score underdog. They end up beating the Tide by 2 scores. Steve, there was a headliner there. Number 1 quarterback Kavian Bryant. What was his reaction to this Florida State win?
Well, as we record the Wiltfong Whip Around on Monday morning, he's still in Tallahassee.
Oh, wow.
Arrived that Saturday, spent the day with the staff on Sunday, getting more time with them on Monday before leaving. Florida State is in the top 2 in this recruitment right now. I think if you ask folks around Tallahassee where they stand, I think they're very optimistic about their position. Texas Tech is that other program who is betting against the Red Raiders right now for prominent prospects. They just landed Cooper Hackett, 5-star offensive tackle, on Saturday night. And I think if you would have asked people around Norman, what's your position with in-state recruit Cooper Hackett, they would have said Sooners lead. Well, they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard for me to just sit here and just say for sure that Florida State is going to land Kavian Bryant because of the presence of Texas Tech right now on the recruiting trail.
Yeah.
But Florida State is way in it for Kavian Bryant, loves the offense, loves the relationship with the coaching staff. This is a program that's been high on the list for a long time. They just wanted to see Florida State do it. And Florida State looked more like the team that went 23-4 over the previous 2 seasons, one that would have competed in the playoff had their quarterback not gotten hurt ahead of the ACC title game. Or was it the ACC title game, Josh? It all runs together. But either way, they didn't make the playoffs because of that injury. So they didn't get a chance to swing at all the marbles. But Florida State, 23-4 the 2 years prior. Mike Norvell's got a head coaching track record, various stops before. That's who Florida State is more so than 2-10 last year. They just needed the season to end. I kind of remember us shooting a whip around after Florida State's last game last year, and it was almost like a relief when quadruple zeros hit the clock of their last game, and it was like, it's not hanging over them as they tried to finish out their recruiting class and get ahead with these guys, but they need to show these recruits that they can win. And Kavian Bryant being inside Doak, seeing that offense, the potential. And then if you add a guy, he had a fantastic opening game, over 300 yards passing.
Yeah.
He's running the ball. I mean, he is an exceptional dual threat quarterback that's also a terrific basketball player. He met with the basketball staff on his visit. He may only just play football. I'm hearing now. Justin Wells from our Texas site got me plugged in with that, but obviously talking to some sources after that. So he did meet with the basketball staff at Florida State. He could play both in college, but he's certainly a quarterback first. He's got all the tools to be tremendous in college with his game-breaking ability as a thrower and a runner. Florida State, if he chose the Seminoles, he'd be tough to keep off the field early.
Yeah.
And I'm very excited about the opportunity with Florida State. They are a definite team to watch after a 2+ day visit, which included that upset of the Crimson Tide.
Almost like an official visit there for a 2027 recruit. I know official visits can't happen for another year for Kavian Bryant, but coming in for an entire weekend, staying through Monday is huge for Florida State. And you got to imagine, man, what a difference a year makes. A year ago, if he's at this game, he's seeing DJU acting like a statue in the backfield, not a whole lot of creativity with the quarterback. Fast forward, Tommy Castellanos. I mean, Kavian Bryant, like you said, he's a natural athlete. I'm sure he could envision himself much more in this Gus Malzahn offense that Florida State has in 2025 compared to what they were doing last year in 2024. So all around, it sounds like a great visit for Kavian Bryant, who is quickly becoming FSU's top target in the 2027 class. But he wasn't the only one on campus, Steve. Who else headlined this big visit weekend for the Seminoles?
Well, 4-star running back Amari Thomas at one point committed to the Seminoles, now committed to South Carolina, was back in Tallahassee. That's a prospect that Florida State is still recruiting. DQ Forkba, 4-star linebacker, playing up at Baltimore St. Francis. On a recent episode, I accidentally said Alabaster Thompson. One reader was very pissed about that, so I apologize. Took it way more personal than DQ Forkba and his family did. But we love that passion, that energy from diehard football fans that want you to bat 1,000 every day. But Forkba was on campus. We'll see if Florida State's on the gas there. Many of their commits were there. Isaiah Williams, one of them. Obviously, much is made about all the commitments that he's made. He's made 2 to Florida State, including the last one. I'm told that, obviously had a great visit. I think that one's locked in, talking into a source. Wow. So that's good news. There's some guys that weren't there that Florida State is happy that they certainly tuned in. And that starts with Derek Cooper, number 2 running back in the country. I think that's Florida State's top target moving forward. Even when he committed to Texas, there was still communication with FSU. And that was not a program that we were talking much about, certainly in the summer for Derek Cooper. More of the buzz was around Georgia, Ohio State, and obviously the Longhorns at the end. But he's a Florida State fan that wants to see Florida State do well. And even when he committed to Texas, it's like, I'm going to be watching you guys this year and seeing what's what. And through one game, what's what is looking pretty darn good. Miami's in there. So we'll see what happens with Derek Cooper, but you can't mention him and flip potential without saying Florida State also moving forward. In my opinion, Cam Wilson's a pass rusher from in-state. He's committed to Syracuse. A lot of buzz about Nebraska trying to change that. I wouldn't be surprised if we see an uptick from Florida State there. There'll be more names as the season continues here in 2026. But Florida State doing fabulous. And then I did log a prediction for the Noles in 2027. The nation's number 9 linebacker, Gregory Batson out of Lee County in Georgia. He told me Florida State's his leader, and it's going to take a lot to change that following his experience in Tallahassee over the weekend.
All right, Steve, what sort of recruiting implications do you think this will have for FSU moving forward? Because, when FSU kind of got hot in July into August, we didn't even have to say it, but we kind of knew, hey, this is only going to stick if they can turn it around on the field. And they haven't completely turned it around, but beating Alabama to start the season is a great start. So what kind of recruiting implications can it have for a top 15 class for Florida State?
Well, obviously, I think they'll add to it if they keep rolling. They'll spatula somebody somewhere, and so it'll be interesting to see who. But they got to keep it going, right? Castellanos has to stay healthy. He has to play well for 12 games.
Right.
But so far, so good. Through one game, you love the addition of these new coordinators. And we've talked about it on the Whip Around before. We've seen turnarounds at Notre Dame. Brian Kelly goes 4-8, changes the coordinators, changes the strength coach. They bounce back and win 10 the next year and go on a run that includes a couple college football playoffs. Michigan, the COVID year, what an awful season for the Wolverines. People were writing off Jim Harbaugh, fire him, get him out of town. Some staff changes, strength coach, coordinators. Wolverines quickly bounce back, ultimately win 3 Big Ten titles and a national championship. Mike Norvell had to do some hard things at the end of the season. No one likes firing staffers and making changes to your program. He had to look in the mirror. New offensive coordinator, Gus Malzahn. New defensive coordinator, Tony White. New assistants. New energy in the program. And we saw what that looked like in week 1. We'll see how it continues moving forward.
All right, Florida State fans, chime in. How you feeling after a huge week 1 victory over Alabama at home? Doak was rocking. Steve, they redid the stadium, and they said that they were taking out close to 15,000 seats, but that was pretty, even through the TV, that seemed like it was really a loud game.
I can still hear the war chant, Josh, the song of your college years, brother. And you called this win. You predicted the Seminoles last Thursday. You come here for the recruiting intel. Every once in a while, you get a prediction nugget. FSU was 14-point dogs. If you listen to Newberg, you could be wealthy today, counting your money from your app on the boat for Labor Day.
That was just a gut feeling, Steve. That was just going with the gut there. But Florida State fans, chime in, talk to us how you feeling on this big Monday.